Where do I start? Started in ballroom in 2004, 2005. I was about 16, going on 17 years old at the time, and I was brought to the scene by Corey Caron Balenciaga, who walked best dressed. Corey had knew some of my friends who were college students that used to produce college fashion shows. So when I was introduced to him, I just came out to my mother, just came out to my family. So it was a really fragile time for me, but what I later learned in my life is that Corey was the main person who instilled in me principles and morals of what it was to be a gay black man. And not just be a gay black man, but a successful gay black man. He influenced a lot of um, my upcoming in regards to how I presented myself to the world, how I entered rooms, how I felt about myself, all of the things that, you would need when coming into a new space. So to a degree, Corey was my first gay mother. Corey, like I said, when I met him was in the House of Garcon, which was supposed to be my first house for performance. I wasn't thinking about walking runway at the time. And all my life I had been teased for my natural walk. I walk with a switch. And in third grade, I remember I was called a faggot. That followed me throughout all of the school system, elementary, junior high school, even into college. And that kind of stuck with me because, I was just naturally being me. I wasn't trying to force femininity or force masculinities. So how I was when I was straight is how I've always been. It's how I've always identified. So there was no real change in me when I technically came out. Getting into the ballroom space, I saw people who looked like me or what I thought I could look like. And at 17 years old, I'm super impressionable and I'm open to learning. And the first ball that I went to was the con ball at NYU, and I was just amazed. At the time, I was a senior in high school, and I wanted to pursue a career as a dancer. So to see all of these people, being creative, having fun, there's so much energy and excitement in the room. I knew that that was something that I wanted to be a part of, but I also wanted to finish school. College was something that I thought, would really help and impact my life. Going to school to become a trained dancer and then becoming a professional dancer was my main focus at the time. But ballroom just felt like a place where I could kind of practice and learn and make friends. I wasn't prepared for mainstream. Like I said, I was a teenager, and a group of my friends, we started calling ourselves the Issey Miyake's because of the work that we did with college fashion shows, training models, putting shows together. And at the time, Top Model was like the reality TV of the time. And we used to watch Victoria's Secret fashion shows, and that's how I kind of developed the aesthetic for my runway. Some of my favorite models were Naomi Campbell, Carolina Corcova, Carmen Cass. So the group that I was around, all of us kind of learned ballroom and our alter egos at the same time, and all of us were kind of at the same place in our lives. So we were all kind of learning and growing as friends and as extended family all together without even really knowing. And what that ended up turning into was the first youth created Kiki House, which was the House of Sequoia, created by Randy and Tashane. And we are kind of like the pioneers for that space and that structure. And through us, came other houses, other people. So I'm always really thrown off when I see mainstream people kind of bash the Kiki scene, because some of the greats of mainstream have come from the Kiki scene. Myself, Jason Mugler, Laomi Mugler, Swiper Mugler, Boots Mugler, Little Mama Allure, Katrina Ebony, Cassandra Ebony, Malaysia Ebony, Omari Orichi. So many people who have become mainstream staples. Our stomping grounds were the Kiki scene, and all of that started in around '05 and '06. The second ball that I went to was the POCC ball at the park, at Fort Greene Park. And I was just mesmerized because there were only 7 categories, and each category I believe was for $1,000. And you had to be the best of the best to get on that floor. And the feeling of the crowd and the adrenaline and just seeing people in their elements, really mesmerized me. It really kind of captivated me because it was like you're on stage and the people are here to see you. One of my favorite moments from the POCC Bowl was seeing LSS and seeing, the people that they're calling out and the judges come up from the side of the stage, and Andre and Whitney and Sanaya. And then as the ball progressed, Deja coming out as Freddy Krueger, Mika as Catwoman, Christina, TK Prada coming out winning Face for the $1,000. All of it was something that stayed with me and kind of became the DNA of who I became in ballroom. And the structure that is my alter ego came from those people, their attitude, their presence, their preparation, because you could tell that they weren't new to this. These were people who knew what they were doing and they knew what they had set out to be. So the POCC Bowl in 2006, I believe, 2005, I'm sorry, was for me one of the most iconic moments that I've ever kind of experienced in ballroom. My first house was the House of Garcon. Luna and Trayvon were my parents at the time. And I was already walking at the clubhouse before I was a con. So I already kind of made a name for myself, and one of my first grand prizes was actually at the clubhouse. Tyra, who was in the lure at the time, threw a ball and runway was for $100. And I beat the entire lineup for Givenchy, which included Caliente, who had just joined the house, who was already making some noise as a ninja, and he came to Givenchy and became a powerhouse. Selvin, who we know as MC Deborah, who actually, Selvin, who I love, actually put me on a lock during a runway battle. And like I said, I'm like 17 at the time, and I beat him all votes. And then Bobby Givenchy, All-American, was the last battle, and I won grand prize and won $100. So after the House of Garcon, I joined the House of Revlon. And my first ball, I walked at Esquilitas. I believe it was a Rumble ball or maybe a Super Bowl. I don't remember, but we had to come as scarecrows. And I was pretty much like in character, was influenced by The Wiz, and a friend of mine, whose name is James, it was his idea for like the concept and like the hay and how I came out. So he's throwing hay all over the place, and Jack is like, "You're gonna clean that shit up. You're gonna clean that shit up." And I made my own production with the help of James, and we just kind of teeter-tottered off of each other with ideas. And I came out, and everyone thought that I was Anthony Revlon, who was the tall boy at the time for the House of Revlon. And I remember Anthony coming behind the judges and tapping Selvin and like, "That's not me." And Durell was born in that moment. The second ball I walked was the POCC ball. And one of my early rivals was Rodney at the time, LaCroix, currently Lanvin. Rodney beat me my first two balls. So I kind of had a vendetta against Rodney because I'm like, how is he beating me? And Montez, Givenchy Mizrahi at the time, was another one of my early rivals. I had walked as a Revlon at the House of Icon ball at the lab, and it was Tall Boys Bring It as a member of the Harley Davidson Club. And the runway was chaotic. People were just cutting me off left and right. And at the time, I didn't know what to do. So I'm just like trying to T-stance and like do all of these things to like not get stuck. And it wasn't even Montez blocking me. It was the people crossing the runway that blocked me. But he beat me that night, but I ended up getting Montez years down the line. And I miss him very, very much. Andre, Mr. Ballroom DVD, was a Revlon as well, but Andre had got the opportunity to become the New York City father of the House of Chanel. And I was really close with Andre, I was really close with Stiffy, I was really close with Rucker. Those were the people who were kind of my backbone and my main support in the House of Revlon. And, Andre was just like, I really think this would be a good move. Revlon isn't, where I want it to be. And at the time, I'm gonna follow the person that's, my biggest influence. And I ended up meeting R.R. Chanel, and he knew who I was and was really interested in getting me on board. And after a few conversations, hearing their plans for the chapter and the overall revision of the House of Chanel, I decided to leave the House of Revlon. And I debuted at the New York Awards Ball at the Black Harlem Theater in 2006 as a Chanel. That's where Durell Chanel was born. Set up to get me and the other Chanels out of there. At the time, it was myself, it was Jason, and William, who most people know as True Prodigy, rest in peace. And we came out as Japan. We came out with this dope production under 3 minutes, because that was always something that I was taught. Keep your productions under 2 minutes. And they were at us from the jump. My first battle was against Aja Cavalli, and in ballroom, when it comes to status, Aja was damn near a legend. Here I am, someone that never walked virgin. I went straight into walking with the big dogs, and the first awards ball, my first battle is Aja Cavalli. I'm shitting bricks, honestly, because I knew who Aja was. I admired her walk, I enjoyed her walk, and I didn't learn my walk from watching ballroom people. So the more I became into ballroom, the more I started seeing people. But I paid a lot of attention to the female figures, and I will always speak these ladies' names. Nadine Milan, Black Cat Givenchy, Giselle Extravaganza, Mariah Revlon, Eve Prada. Those are like my favorites. Morgan Jardin, Vivica Masai Mugler. You know, these were women that really went out there and broke it up. Tyra, who was like a titan of runway. And Aja, who now is side by side, and this is for $500. And the beat started and I went apeshit. I just took flight and I beat Aja all boats, and then came the House of Givenchy. I didn't know that this next battle was going to ultimately solidify my name in the runway category, but I battled the first Butch Queen $1,000 runway, the Hall of Famer, Ricky Revlon Mizrahi. I'm in a kimono because I came as Japan, and he's in his Scottish yard look, this tartan tail fill with this beautiful kilt. And Let's Go came on, and we took flight, and I just started hitting these poses, really Asian inspired. And I was thinking about kabuki theater. There's always a thought process with me when I walk. There's never just a blank character. It always comes from some reference. And I beat Ricky all boats, and I'm just like blown away because the other Chanels that I had walked with had already got processed. So I was the last and lone survivor, and it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure. I knew Ricky was a heavy hitter. I didn't know ballroom politics at the time, and with me not having a name, to beat him in a wipeout, to me was iconic. And I knew that I had did something right, and there was going to be hell to pay with the next two Givenchys, which was Montez and Caliente. Montez brought it as Germany, wiped him out. And Caliente, who was everybody's rival at the time, was just really shady, you know? And what I appreciate about with that era is that when we didn't like each other, we didn't like each other. We were never violent toward one another. We were never disrespectful toward one another off of the floor. But if both of us were at the back of the runway, you're getting out of here. Like, it is my goal and my task to get you out of here as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And Caliente was one of those people that everybody put a target on his back when he walked because he was so nasty. Off the floor, he was a sweetheart, but when it came to him, you know, walking, he was nasty because he came in with this attitude of he was the epitome of runway. He was also a designer. So he always came with fashion references. Rarely ever saw Caliente in anything that was a costume. So you had to be on your A game. And this was for $500. This is my debut. He already had a name, and I refused to just let him wipe me out. And grand prize. Name just started building and building and building. The more I walked, the more I did. And I was nominated for Of the Year. I've been nominated for an Of the Year, I want to say, after that moment for the following 6 years. I'm the first Tall Boys Liberty Awards of the Year, which was something that Jack had started. So things were good. Things were really good. And I decided to part ways with the House of Chanel. I started doing makeup and really wanted to focus on my career. It was so important for me to, not just have a lifestyle within ballroom, but be able to be happy with who I was outside of this space. As beautiful as ballroom is, as fun as it can be, there's also a very dark side about ballroom that people often don't talk about. People come into a space expecting validation from others, but they never take the time to heal their traumas, to focus on themselves, maybe repair relationships with family members. There's so many things that could cause someone to become almost addicted to ballroom validation. And I made sure that I didn't become that. I started to see people be really nasty to me. I started seeing people get upset with me because I wasn't walking as much as they wanted to. This is an extracurricular activity. Balls require money, especially when you're traveling. And I'm very young. I'm in my early 20s at this point. So, doing things the right way was always important to me. Unfortunately, due to ballroom and my own immaturity, my very first relationship, the love of my life, I lost because I was chasing ballroom popularity and ballroom fame and did things and disrespected myself and my partner, chasing this hierarchy and this air. And in the process, I hurt somebody that I really cared about, and I hurt myself as well. So after that experience, it was just time for me to kind of regroup and to heal and figure out, okay, who are you? Yes, you're young, but life and tomorrow isn't guaranteed and or promised. So you got to get things right, because you can't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over. So I was really big on taking breaks and taking the time I needed to step away and then coming back. So I made my name as Durell Chanel, but I solidified myself as Durell Milan. The House of Milan had interest in me for quite some time, and they saw me walk a grand prize at a Kiki ball. It was Tony Milan, Eric Milan, and Iman Milan, and I had won $500 runway. And next thing I know, I'm sitting with Tony, Nadine, and Eric, having dinner, and they offered me, membership to become a Milan. And Milan was one of those houses when I was coming up, I feared, because these were adults. This was a house of, real stellar people, really polished people, with that kind of air about them. But it wasn't an arrogance. It was, I know who I am. I've been arrived in this space, and I have also arrived outside of ballroom. And where I was in my personal life outside of ballroom, Milan aligned with me perfectly. My career as a makeup artist was going great. I was doing Fashion Week. I started getting campaigns. I worked on commercials. I started assisting other artists. I eventually ended up on an assistant roster with an agency, which was my dream. And all of that happened as a Milan. So I'm forever grateful for the things that Eric and Tony and Stanley taught me, because they really were those positive role models that showed me you can have a life outside of ballroom and still be that girl in ballroom. But if you're not that girl in your real life, how are you a Milan? And that was something that it's in Milan teaches you a certain thing that just kind of stays with you throughout your life. And to this day, I still have that kind of Durell Milan thing, which just kind of like, girl, what? Excuse you, it was just real ready for like, okay, we're not gonna do it that way. And I was so humbled and blessed to be deemed legendary in 2016 as a Milan. I always throw out my trophies, but I kept my legendary plaque. That was something for me that just solidified the work that they did for me, but also the work that I did for the category and the work that I did for myself. And it was just a real full circle moment and a celebratory moment, because at the time my life was complete. I had everything that I could ever need, and Milan showed up for me in ways no other house had. In 2013, My partner of 2 years, Terrell Matthews, committed suicide. And I didn't want to be bothered with anybody or anything. And the Milans were the first people after my family to call me, to come see me, to check on me, to embrace me, and to really show me that love. And I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that moment with them, because it showed me that these people didn't just care about trophies. These people didn't just care about me coming out and being that. They cared about me as a human being, and I thank them for that. A friend of mine who had known me since I was Durell Chanel, he texted me, and it was his idea ultimately for me to walk the Garcon ball. Kiana Lanvin, who's was my mother in the House of Chanel, she you, she used to call me Darlene Sugarbaker. I don't know where this name came from, but it kind of stuck with me. So all of the old Chanels at the time, and to this day, called me Darlene, or Lean for short. And he called me, he said, Lean. He was like, you gotta walk this ball. And this is, like, I'm not in the house at the time. I wasn't thinking about ballroom. I had just had a really great year on set. I had worked on The Color Purple. I had worked on the Regina King project. I was on a Marvel project. So my TV and film career was really starting to bloom. So that was the only thing I was focusing on. And it felt good to be working on these iconic projects and to have a resume that was starting to get really creditable. And I was like, I'm not thinking about it, but what's the category? And he sent me the category, and there was no way in hell that I was ignoring this because it was Egyptian. The only thing that stopped me was there was a list, and Durell wasn't on it. At first, I kind of, I was a little thrown off because the list to me for all of the categories didn't make sense. There were people there who had never battled each other. There were people there from different eras. There were no real rivals. And for the ones who I felt were on the list that had heavier names, it was just kind of like, okay, well, this person can clear out this whole list. Like, I don't, like, how am I not on this? And I just kind of let it slide because, again, I wasn't in a house. I didn't owe anybody anything. I had no alliances. And with everything that had occurred between, me leaving Milan in 2018, 2019, up until COVID, and then in 2021, when I had a mental breakdown, I was in a facility for 6 months. So when I got out, the first thing that I did, I focused back on work, surviving multiple suicide attempts, and my last suicide attempt with a gun. It was time to pour into Durell. It was 1000% Durell, Durell, Durell. Nothing else mattered. No one else mattered. And, to go back into a ballroom space, it felt foreign. It felt unfamiliar. It didn't feel like a space that was for me anymore because of everything that I had learned from myself, and especially understanding triggers and what safe spaces are. I knew where I was and how I felt about the world. Ballroom wasn't going to be safe for me. And I ended up speaking to Tonka Garcon, just to kind of ask some more questions like, hey, like, can I challenge the list? Are y'all allowing people to storm? Like, what is the setup? And he told me that the Garcons actually had a challengers list. And I submitted my name once that information was released, and I was number 2 on the list for the challengers. So I was able to now be accepted to walk this category, and it was a go from there. When I saw my name on the list, I knew that I was gonna be in for a fight. Ballroom is extremely political, no matter who you are, no matter how talented you are. When you're a 007 and you're already kind of seen as the underdog because you don't play into politics, you are kind of that silent mafia, which was a name for the runway squad of Milan that had been there before I got there, because all of us were very similar. We kept to ourselves. We made sure our real lives were on point. And when we came to balls, it was very low key. We would come to balls, destroy balls, win grand prizes, or make it to the last battle, and we would go back to our lives. So I knew that I couldn't just half-ass this. I knew that I had to be fully devoted. I knew that it was going to take a team. I knew that it was going to take money and lots of preparation to really solidify this category and possibly win $11,000. So there was no way that I was going to half-ass this, because you submitted your name for a reason. Now show them why you should have been on the original list in the first place. That was all that I was thinking, really kind of proving a point to the work that I've done over the years, because I don't think I give myself the credit that I should, but I'm one of the best to ever do it. And I'm so technical about what I do, how I do it, and my approach. And I really have kind of named myself as like the runway technician, because it's just so different. It's so classic. And when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, and there's really nothing you can do to get me out of that. So the inspiration behind the look, I have always loved Egyptian culture. Ancient Egyptians have always been something that I have admired and respected since I was a little kid. When I was younger, I wanted to be an Egyptologist, because I really wanted to understand how these people who had none of the technology that we have today, did these things. The way they manipulated gold, their religious beliefs and practices, their wardrobe, their makeup, their burial services, how they paid homage to their kings and their queens when they passed, and their thoughts about the afterlife and the elaborateness in tombs. And it's something that fascinates me, because 3,000, 4,000 years later, the artifacts that we are able to see and have access to are pristine. That's something that I have to respect. And no matter how history may try to tell the story of Egyptians, these are African people. These are Black people. These are people, destined for greatness, and have been one of the greatest civilizations to ever exist on this earth. So for me, it was extremely important to make sure that everything I did from a 360 perspective was Egyptian, was authentic, and it was done in a tasteful and fashionable way, but also had a ballroom flair to it, as well as me and my story and my journey throughout ballroom. I love working with the designers that the look doesn't feel as though it's a burden on them. I want them to put their all into it. I want them to be inspired by my ideas, and vice versa. And the first designer I reached out to, just didn't have the capacity to help. And that's when I got Malcolm on board, who had done some looks for me before. And I've been working with Malcolm since he was 16. And I knew that he would enjoy it, because he's also a lover of Egyptian culture. And he was the person that I knew would be able to execute what I needed to get done.
I'm Malcolm, and I'm a fashion designer. I first met Durell when I was about 16. I threw my first fashion show and had my first collection. We met on MySpace, I believe. He liked my stuff and wanted to shoot, so we met up and have been inseparable ever since.
So John Galliano is probably one of the main designers that I've always referenced throughout my years in ballroom. John Galliano is one of my favorites. Gareth Pugh, Vivienne Westwood, Yohji Yamamoto. At the time when I came up, runway was still considered a fashion category. And yeah, there were times where, we had to bring it in bizarre things, or things that leaned a little bit more to the costume side. But once you had a name for yourself and you understood you and your aesthetic, you can make that whatever. And I've always leaned toward referencing punk rock, grunge, and club kid. You will always kind of see and feel those references in anything that I've done. And John Galliano was the designer for Christian Dior, and he did a show in 2004. And the show opened with a mix of Beyonce's Baby Boy. And the first look was the look I knew I had to do. It was already done by the icon Dominique Mugler at the Visu Ball. And I've seen that look done a few times by different people, but I didn't feel as though it was done with enough Egyptian influence. It kind of missed the mark. And everything that everybody has done previously, to me, was great, but it just needed that extra kick. This is for $11,000. You know, there was nothing that I was going to do that I wanted to resemble anything other than hieroglyphics and Egyptian gods.
Elle and I have worked together a million times. As far as ballrooms, we've worked together a few times creating custom looks. I think I'm like one of a few people that he's ever worked with to create looks, outside of him creating his own things. And as far as just working together in general, he's been the key artist for a bunch of my shows. He did one of my very first photo shoots in Brooklyn when I was in high school. A few of my friends and I took the train out to Brooklyn, which felt like a million hours. And then once we got there, I think we went to Prospect Park and did a photo shoot, and it was one of my first and still one of my favorite shoots. And we've been working together ever since.
Me and Durell first met years ago. I'm gonna say like 2006, 7, or 8. I don't remember exactly the year. But we met working for a cosmetic company. And throughout the years, we kind of like just crossed paths. And a friendship developed after meeting. Not knowing that he was any part of ballroom, and not knowing that I was going to become part of ballroom at some point. But I understood and learned a little bit from ballroom from him. And he's actually my house father at one point, but that's a different question. Oh my God, yeah, I can forget that.
So being a makeup artist and a photographer, to plan my shoots, I have to create mood boards. I do the same thing with ball looks. Mood boards basically direct every piece of the look. So I did a mood board for inspiration for the accessories. I did a mood board for the makeup. I did a mood board for the headpiece, the textiles, and I pieced everything together. And I knew that I wanted James to do the makeup. The makeup was a reference from Doja Cat when she painted herself red. And I wanted to do stones, but once I started talking to James and we started kind of collaborating with each other, I didn't feel like the stones would look right. So we made sure that the glitter was going to be the piece that really made the moment.
When Durell calls, I answer and I pick up and I was there. The look came so effortlessly together in such a like timely manner, especially because Durell is a lover of Egyptian culture. So for me, it was very easy as he took the lead in this, but also allowed me to have my input and suggest different things. I remember, I think maybe not even 24 hours later, I was already sending him inspirations off of Pinterest of ideas that I came across and things that I'd seen. The one thing that we wanted to do was to stick to the most authentic version of an Egyptian goddess or god. And that's what we did.
This also almost didn't happen because my sponsor for this category just kind of disappeared, you know, where I was getting all of my finances from, or at least the majority of it just kind of went MIA. And typically when things start to happen bad with balls, you're either gonna have a really good outcome or you're probably not gonna walk. For me to make a return, there was no way that I was not gonna walk this ball. I literally submitted my name to this house to say, I deserve to be on this list. I'm gonna be at this ball, I'm going to walk. And maybe a month before, you know, when I couldn't get things in order, I called it off. The designer for my back piece was going to use a welder, and in September, we started the process of figuring out the structure of the wings, and I didn't know that that was carnival time. So this welder who specialized in back pieces for carnival, he was booked. So everything that could could have went wrong started to go wrong. And the only thing that I had really solidified was Malcolm and James. And I didn't want to put too much on them, but I also didn't want to overexert myself and stress myself out, because a return is important, but a return as a 007 can make or break you. You know, you're almost like the black sheep of the space, because you're not in a house, you know? And it really almost didn't happen. And thankfully, when I was getting ready for Halloween, a friend of mine, you know, we were talking, and I said, you know, I don't think I'm gonna do this. My spirit isn't feeling right. You know, if I can't get these wings, you know, or a piece of a wing, some type of wing, this is gonna be really hard, or they're gonna chop me. And I was like, I'm not getting chopped. And we ended up finding a designer in Lithia. I think it was Lithia or Lithuania. I ended up finding a designer in Europe, and this was Halloween. So I'm 2 weeks out from this ball and had to worry about these wings getting through customs. So I'm like, we're gonna express ship it. By the grace of God and the Egyptian gods, the wings came right on time. They were perfect when they got here. They were durable, they were strong, they were lightweight. And there was just so much I can do with them. And I knew that this is gonna be the centerpiece of this look. And I was prepared to walk everyone with these wings on. For me, when you come out with something so elaborate, if it's a back piece, if it's a headpiece, it should stay on. Taking off a part of your costume or part of your look, to me, it's not it. You know, what y'all went up for when I came out for my 10s is what you should go up for when I'm battling people. So I was so excited that these wings didn't feel like I had a TV on my back. They felt like an extension of my body. They felt like an extension of the effect. And between the wings and the crown, I mean, everything was my favorite, but the wings and the crown were probably my most favorite things to work on.
Favorite part was actually the last thing that we did, which was the headpiece. I wasn't even supposed to do the headpiece, and Durell called me and was like, look, we really need to pull something together. The person that was supposed to do it isn't able to do it. How can we figure this out? So we're looking at YouTube videos and just images of ancient Egyptian headpieces, and I made a pattern for it. And the day of, he actually created it himself using the pattern, and it came out amazing. Like, when I saw it, I was like, that just pulled everything together. And it was like literally the cherry on top of the sundae. Like,
Malcolm definitely saved the day, and he knows I'm not afraid or against making my own headpieces. As long as I understand the shape, I can pretty much do the rest of the work. And I went home and, you know, made sure all my things were packed. Throughout this entire process, I'm having multiple conversations with James about his makeup kit. I'm bringing stuff from my makeup kit. You know, whatever he didn't have, I had. Whatever I didn't have, he had. And I got on the road, and James was taking a train down, and I told him I'll pick him up before I got to the Airbnb, and we were the first two to arrive in DC. So we made it to DC. I got this one with me, Trouble. Met this one at the train station, but we're getting my car checked really quickly. Just got my nails done. This is rare for me. This is like as gay as I get. I never get my nails done, and I definitely don't get designs. But I mean, hey, you only get to live once. The weather's pretty trash out here, so we're just gonna make sure my car is good and then go run some more errands. I pretty much have everything, so I don't need to get anything else. So we just kind of want to be out and about and spend some time together. I normally never practice runway at all.
Presenting legendary, all day, legendary. Yes, iconic.
Should have been iconic already.
There are moments where, you know, while I'm away from the scene, I might walk around in my house or might get an LSS at a Kiki ball, but I never set out to have runway practice. That's never been my thing. after I understood who Durell was, you know, practicing just kind of went out of the window. And we're at the Airbnb, the energy is great. My friend Tiffany and G, who's Tiffany's girlfriend, came down, you know, so we all split this beautiful Airbnb, and Saturday was the day to just kind of zone out. And it was so magical and so spiritual because everyone was just there to see the end result, which was me perform. And the affirmations and the love and the support and the bouncing off of ideas. You know, here I am as a 007, not in a house, but my friends became my house. My friends became my support system. My friends became the people who made sure that everything that I needed was taken care of and was all right. And that was probably the most fulfilling part about the weekend. So it made me more confident. And Sunday I went to go get, Saturday, excuse me, which was the day of the ball, I had breakfast. You know, we were all in the zone. Everything was kind of sectioned off in the house. So that way, when it was time to pack, there was nothing that was going to be left that I needed. I went out and grabbed some materials and made my crown with James the day of the ball, right before we started makeup. And it was just like everything was coming together. It felt like, if not a win monetarily, it felt like a win spiritually. It felt like a win from the moment. It felt like a win for the return. And how is the crowd going to respond to you? How is ballroom going to respond to you? How are the judges going to respond to seeing Durell back, and not just back a little bit, but back to like really solidify, like, y'all gonna stop playing with me. Just because I don't associate myself with y'all all the time or socialize with y'all all the time, y'all are gonna stop playing with me and stop ignoring an undeniable talent and an undeniable gift that is just a part of who I am and my upbringing. And if it wasn't for people like, you know, RR, Stiffy, Kiana, Eric, Tony, Jason Mugler, who's one of my best friends, childhood friends, but also my biggest rival. You know, these are people that constantly poured into me for years. You know, I was there to do this for everything that they've done for me, but also just to kind of make a moment and make some noise, because runway is my category. It's a part of my lifestyle. I eat and breathe this. This isn't just a way for me to express myself, but it aligns with almost everything that I've done professionally. And this weekend, I was gonna show everybody who I was, and what I've always been capable of is making moments. So we start doing makeup, and I'm texting my sister Perp. Perp and I were Milans together, and I'm probably Perp's like #1 makeup artist to go to. Perp is my little sister that I adore her so much because we just have a genuine relationship and we understand each other.
My relationship with Durell is I am the little sister. I am the brat of the family. You know, I'm the lone little sister that Durell just found out that he had, and here I am. I love Durell. I love everything about Durell. When it comes to the friend hierarchy, you know, he's very high up there. And I don't put people on a pedestal. I don't put people on that top list because, you know, sometimes people disappoint you. But out of all the years that I have known Durell, and it's been 6, he has never showed me or ever has made me doubt that he ain't my brother. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
We can talk about ballroom, we can talk about life, we can talk about love, we can talk about career. And I can go weeks without talking to Perp. And the minute we speak, it's like there was never any distance at all. People like that, you make sure that you love on authentically, and love is of service. And I always, always feel love when I speak to her. And she texted me right when I was about to start makeup, and it moved me so much. I was just in tears.
West had texted him prior to us starting these. Oh God, I'm wrong. Perp West had sent Durell a really beautiful message right before we started glam. I was not a witness to this. I was just kind of like, my back was turned towards him, and just kind of setting last minute things before we started. And before I knew, I remember turning around and him literally physically having like a moment.
It's so much to me. No, I love you so much.
We're about to turn this bitch. Ready for this hoe? Okay. This is the return, faggots. But you gotta beat that out.
Girl, no, I don't.
This is the return, homosexuals. I just literally hugged hugged him, because in that moment I felt like it was needed to reassure him that everything was gonna be okay. So that part right there of the whole entire process was my favorite moment of that particular weekend.
My journey with ballroom has not been the easiest, and through trial and error and sacrifice and losing people and being criticized and just everything that's come with these 19 years, it was becoming a full circle moment for me to really just show up and show out, and not for the scene, but for me.
It was him being extremely vulnerable, and him receiving the love and the affirmation he needed in that moment.
I didn't care about anybody on that list. I didn't think about anybody on any of those lists. The mission and the objective was to solidify and further solidify my legacy and my impact in ballroom as a whole. And I made sure that the love that was poured into me, I was able to give right back. And I'm so grateful to have Perp in my life, because she really just kind of signed off on my mindset of, you're that bitch. You've always been that bitch. And it's game time.
This journey has also taught me to always pour into myself when others may not pour in that cup. Just always just being determined to always remember, what are you here for? What is your purpose? And what is the story that you are telling today? And I think that is one of the biggest things that I admire about Durell, is that he tells stories.
Music and commentating for Runway for me helps me tell a story. And if the music is off, if the commentation is off, I might get a little off, because I'm listening for what to interact with, just like a performance person would, a voguer would, or a dancer would. I'm listening for those cues to really push me to, maybe pose a certain way or walk a certain way, to make sure my stride was not on the beat, but not too slow, that it kind of rides those back beats. But I already knew what I wanted to do for my 10s, and I was practicing it probably for the last 2 months, just getting in the routine of my stride and my hips. And I'm bigger now versus when I was Durell Chanel. I was young, I was very small. I'm a little older. So, the grown man weight is there. So the runway looks different. It feels different. The effects don't look the same. We finished makeup and started heading to the venue, and I went into the venue with a mask. I didn't want anybody to know I was there. I didn't want anybody to kind of shift my mentality. I didn't want anybody to distract me. I didn't want people in my face. And I went and sat in a corner. I got there maybe 2 or 3 categories before, and I just waited and waited and waited and waited, and started getting dressed, and they started calling runway, and they saved the challengers for last. So, All American went in female figure and legends and so on and so forth. And the challengers list came, and here we go. All of these things are going through my mind as I'm coming up the steps. And I typically always start in a T stance, so I can go out with my stronger leg, my lead leg. And I get the wings, past the handrails, and boom, hit it. And I'm listening to Deshaun, and I'm expecting, oh bitch, the return, because I'm just old school. That's what people normally get when they come out. And to my right is Snooki, who I love and have loved Snooki for quite some time. I've known Snooki since she was younger. And, I hear her like, yes, Durell, and boom, I just took flight. I start walking down the runway, my hips feel good, everything on me feels good. The wings felt good, they felt stable. I knew they were gonna move a little bit, but they weren't overpowering me. And I hit the U, I get to the judges panel, and I hit what I call the U. I come around, I'm looking every judge in the eye, I get to this where the stage meets the runway, and I hit a T-stance and boom, because I want you to see, you know, the lines in the outfit. I want you to see the structure of the crown, the reflection in the wings. So I had to find my light, go to the back, and I'm starting to walk towards the back, and one of my signatures is a slow revolve, and I get right to where Deshaun is, and he's, you know, doing his thing, and I hit it, and I come out of it and go right back to the judges, because if you didn't give me a 10, I want to see you give me a 10, because it was undeniable and 10s from the back once I hit the steps. I thought about this look, like I said, in 360 degrees, because I wanted to look like a hieroglyphic from every angle. We live in a world of content. I don't know who's in the audience recording me or where this stuff is gonna go. You know, who's here that may, you know, book me for something or want me to work on a project or interview me. You just don't know when it comes to balls nowadays. So again, being so fascinated with Egyptian culture, being so thrilled to be back on the floor, I didn't want you to be able to read anything from any angle, whether you were above me, whether you were at a table, whether you were right on the runway looking up, you know, to the wings, or, you know, seeing that this wasn't colored, or there's a seam out of place, or you see something from a glue gun here. I didn't want any of that. And my 10s kind of set the tone. So I went to the back and I had James take off the rings, because I just didn't like the way that they felt. And I started to feel like the judges couldn't see my hips. Take those off, and it was only 3 of us that walked the challengers list. And, you know, Deshaun closed it, and he's like, the first battle. I'm not in the house. The other 2 people, Iman Balenciaga and TK Lanvin, clearly aren't in the same house. So it was down to me battling all of them based off of how I came out. Iman came out first, I came out second, TK came out after me. So me and Iman, first battle. I'm coming back on the runway from getting my rings taken off. I'm storming straight down. I didn't care who came out. One of y'all gonna get this work, and one of y'all about to go back to y'all house table, because it wasn't about to be me. And I knew that the wings were gonna block people if I did half turns. I knew if I did a full turn, the wings will block people. But I also know what ballroom girls give. They get physical, and lo and behold, what does Iman go and do? She grabs my wings. Thank the Lord that these wings were not metal, they were foam and wire. So when she did it, realistically, part of me wanted to smack shit out of her because, like, don't touch me. But part of me knew when she gets around me, I'm gonna hit a slow revolve, but I can bend these wings into my face, kind of protecting myself. I'm gonna embarrass her, I'm gonna spin out of this, and I'm gonna peel out. I'd practice this. My slow revolve is my signature, but I also can be a very aggressive runway person. I go after people. My goal is always to embarrass you. Your walk isn't as strong as mine. Your walk isn't as technical as mine. You're gonna do something that doesn't look like real runway, and I'm gonna make a mockery of you. That has always been my tactic. That has always been my strategy. And I come back down, they're counting it down to hit the pose. I hit the pose, 1 Durell, 2 Durell, 3. Before I know it, Iman's wiped out. One of my earrings had fell out, so I wanted to take the other one out. So I'm like, okay, I'm warmed up. One thing about me, when I get past the second person, chances are the rest of the people are gonna have a really hard time beating me. That's just what it is, because now I'm in the zone. Last battle is me and TK, and I didn't even know it was TK, and I had worked with the Lanvins for their Grand March video. I was the key makeup artist for that video, and you know, I know TK. I don't have anything against TK, but I was in the zone, and me and him start going at it, and we're battling, and we get back to the front, and they get to the part where they're counting down for the poses, and we both posed, and we're going back and forth. 1 Durell, 2 Durell, 2-1, 2-2, and I'm just like, no offense, are y'all kidding me right now? Like, are y'all seriously? Okay, so okay, and we got to a tie, and Twiggy was the last vote and had to break the tie, and Twiggy picked me. So now I just processed 2 people in the house, and it's like, okay, we are getting closer to this money. I don't care about nothing or nobody. And TK reached out to hug me. I didn't know it was him. And no offense, I didn't hug him. You know, I wasn't in a place of exchanging energy with anybody. I was there to get to that last battle, to get an opportunity for that money. And I was gonna make sure that I did that. And I didn't want anything or anybody throwing me off. That was my mission. And it was no offense to anybody. I'm not friends with anybody. I don't have any alliances. I'm here for Durell and Durell only. So let's get to the point. We're getting closer and closer to the line, and I had to battle the winner from All-American. And I respect everyone who walked, because with that list being so big, and for the people to walk that I'm pretty sure the majority of the scene didn't expect to walk, kudos to us, right? We were the underdogs for that category, or some of us might not have even been people that the scene wanted to see, but who cared, right? Put your ego aside, put your last moment aside, put your last win aside. If you were not on that stage, nothing you say, your viewpoint, your opinions did not matter. We were there for that cash, for that category, and it was an all-out runway war. And the majority of All-Americans don't know what to do against Europeans, so typically European runways beat All-Americans. Zimmy's walking towards me. I didn't even realize Aja was in the back, so I'm thinking it's me against Zimmy. A very strong European runway, very strong designer, very strong look. And out of the generation that have come after my era, Zimmy's one of those people who I have the utmost respect for. It's very few people who I watch walk runway. Zimmy's one of those, and he's a threat. No matter what state he's in, no matter what the category is, if Zimmy's walking, Zimmy's a threat. So I'm zoned out on him because he's walking towards me, and I'm just like, oh, we're doing this now. All right, let's go, West. Not paying attention to Snooki saying I had to battle the Lon Ben. And I'm just like, okay, well, you know, let's refocus. Where is he? Like now I'm scanning, because I'm on the hunt, right? Everybody's a target. Everybody's a target. Everybody's a target. And I got to get you out of here. That was just my mentality. I have to get you out of here. I have to get you out of here. I have to get you out of here. And at that time, before I had got to the back, Baby Garcon, who was a judge, you know, said, well, can you take the wings off? And part of me wanted to say no, but part of me knew she was saying that for a reason. I've seen so many people come out with back pieces and things of such elaborate nature, and they take them off. And, you know, I told her, I said, you know, this is for $11,000. I don't want to take these wings off, but, you know, if you feel like you can't see my walk, okay, I got you. Went to the back. So at this point, like I said, my wings are off, and I'm just kind of down to the bare parts of my effect, my corset, my crown, you know, of course, all my je ne sais quoi up top. And I took off, and I knew that I had to do something against someone to clear it. So when I went to the back to give James my wings, I had a mix of blue powder and glitter in my hand. And I love walking long runways. I come from the era of Roseland Ballroom and having that 50, 60 foot runway. And for whatever reason, people feel as though when you walk runway, you don't have to have stamina. Runway is probably just as challenging as voguing. You have to have stamina. And I took off from the back. He's already in the front, and I knew he was going to be the one. I could not risk not using this stunt on him, because it's not guaranteed that I'm going to beat him. Get his ass out of the way, and whoever wins between Aja and Zimmy, get on their asses. And he comes towards me. I bust what I like to call an open. So I shift towards him diagonally, and it was almost like a Venus flytrap. He came straight towards me, close enough for the powder to get to him without getting in his face or in his eyes, because that could have went left. If he would have tried to attack me, it would have definitely went left. Thankfully, he didn't. And, you know, he understood that that was a part of the shade, and blue dust to the face. I peel off to the back. I come back down, and I could tell he was a little disheveled. He damn near knocked me off the stage when I came back down. So I had to hit my signature shoulder to be like, bitch, you're not going to stop me from walking. You're not going to stop me from moving. get around him, get back to the back, because I'm like, find your light, let people get into the detail of the glitter, because so many people thought that my exposed skin was a shirt, and James had literally painted me teal, and we just layered glitter on me, and I loved how it didn't feel like makeup. It felt like a piece of clothing, and I go to the back and I extend my arm, and when Deshawn says that last pose, I just flex my wrist to further look like a hieroglyphic. Again, it was all about how did I look 360 degrees, because every and anybody could be recording this and posting this, and wiped him out. I went to the back, and now I'm waiting for whatever outcome to happen with Zimi West and Aja Mugler, and Zimi beat Aja, and it was down to me and Zimi. With everything that I had endured, to get to this moment where you are the last battle as a 007, you weren't on the list, you have not walked in, want to say maybe 2 years, you're not in a position to really even have made it this far, yet you did. I wasn't going out without a fight, and I knew Zimi wasn't either. And so at that point, win, lose, or draw, I'm a part of history. We're the last battle for $11,000. All of my hard work over these 19 years was going to be celebrated in this moment with the money or without the money. And if it was anybody that walked that night that I knew was just as hungry as I was for this moment, for this money, for this grand prize, it was Zimi. May the best man win. And I'm in the back, and the beat is just like something so nasty, and I'm just revving up my hips, and I see Deshawn come towards me, and Deshawn's my gay uncle, and he says something to me. I don't even remember, but I never made eye contact with him because my eyes are on Zimi and Zimi's eyes are on me. And when that bass, when it drops, I remember coming down the steps to give myself some momentum, and I kicked off. I almost felt like I was running track. I took off from the blocks and I went straight after Zimi. Again, I'm a 007. Ballroom is very political. Zimi had also just became legendary prior to this ball, but he walked in the category in which he was listed in the first place. But technically, it's a battle of two legends. It's a battle of two titans. And I say that word very strongly, two titans from two different eras on one stage for one purpose, for one grand prize. And I just put my all into it. And he's in his full effect, and I'm missing things from when I first came out. But like I said, it was, for me, it was about the moment at that point, because I already knew how it was gonna kind of go, it was just obvious how it was gonna go. And the one thing I did notice was just, certain judges' energies and responses to me, because I'm sizing them up. I'm sizing them up. People get funny when you're not their house members anymore, or they haven't spoken to you in years, or you used to be friends with people and now they have power over you to sit on a panel. So, they're gonna play the ballroom game, and although, you were once someone they respected and idolized and kikied with, you're in their backyard per se. So they're gonna do what they have to do to protect their status and their ego. Which is just a part of ballroom. But win, lose, or draw, I made it to the last battle. And we get to that point where they're counting down to the pose, and I'm in front of the judges, and I'm thinking of a hieroglyphic. And I remember seeing Isis in a painting where she's idolizing her husband Osiris, who was the god of the underworld. And Isis and Osiris' story is one of romanticism, her finding the remains of her husband because someone killed him, and he, in this reincarnation of her love, of her tears, of her pain, of her grief, she's paying homage to her king. That's all I kept seeing was this romanticism between these two and remembering her story. And I hit the pose and just locked it and stayed in it. And I'm hearing 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, all right, bitch, all right, yeah, I ain't gonna get 1 at least. And I ended up getting 1 vote, but Zimmy got 6, and grand prize Zimmy West. I literally have no regrets or anything that I would change about that weekend, about the look, about the experience. And I think it just kind of further assessed and confirmed that everything happens for a reason. The people I was around was for a reason. The people who couldn't contribute, it was for a reason. The way that the battles went was for a reason. The way my thought process was, everything was for a reason. So if I would have had regrets, the outcome may have been different. This documentary may not have even happened. So that is my reward. That is my win. Granted, $11,111.11 would have been nice, but sometimes there are things that money just can't buy. Whether I walk 6 months from now, whether I walk 2 years from now, whether I never walk again, if this was my last memory, if this was my last moment or the last time that anybody saw me, I made history.
He is one of those rare individuals who through trial and error has been able to overcome so much. And I am forever grateful for the individual and the friend he has become to me.
Seeing Durell return to the floor, the ballroom floor, it was just exciting. Seeing him in his element. Like I said, when we first met, he took me to my first ball when I was 16. And I remember him making, yet again, a headpiece out of blinds. He took blinds, ironed them out, and created a headpiece. And it just was a full circle moment back to me being 16, watching him tear the runway up, and to see him do it again, it was just it was dope.
In my eyes, Durell legacy is a phoenix. Somebody who has rose from the ashes and who has become something that they didn't even know they were going to become. And I think that's why him doing Garcon Ball was so important to him, because that was what a legacy is. That was him leaving it all on the floor. And I also feel like, when he wore those wings, I was like, damn, there he go. They go to Phoenix, Somebody that is showing you that, yeah, things can, happen to me, but I'm here. And that's exactly what he said. I am here. And I feel like his legacy is going to be the one that we talk about, when I'm in his generation kind of pool, where I'm now teaching the new girls about Durell and, what he's done for the scene, not only for mainstream, but for Kiki as well, as him being an icon, okay? Just saying, icon.
Crying on camera. Oh, Lord Jesus. There's just so much to share about what people don't know about him. And I think that's the beauty about him as an individual, is being able to just be an overall amazing individual to people.
One thing about Durell that he may not always show is that he's super kind, super giving, super supportive of just art and bringing people's vision to life. We've worked so many times on projects where we're sending inspiration pictures back and forth, and he really just, one, knows how to get the look done, the concept done, but also is very supportive in helping you find your way to the end project. And not a lot of people do that or care enough to do that. He really helps me personally just bring things to life, and I really admire that and appreciate that about him.
Durell is very sensitive, low key. You know, me and Durell are both tough cookies, but I feel like with being a tough cookie, we still have that little soft spot. So yeah, I feel like Durell's definitely a little sensitive ass girl. She's one of the girls. She be crying, she be doing all that shit. And she be going on that internet, giving y'all the rah rah rah. Whole time she's a whole little marshmallow. But still, don't play with her. I don't want y'all to look at this and think you could play with her. No, she's still a shark. But she got a little, you know, she's like the Grinch. You know, when the Grinch grew his heart, you know, it's there. It's there. And I think that is one of the things that I love about Durell, you know, his sensitive side. Because if not, it'd be me and Durell just being old late queens, just reading everybody.
It's just the fact that he wears his heart on his sleeve. And if you're one of the chosen loved ones around him, you feel the love consistently. You feel the affirmation consistently. You feel his genuine care consistently. And it's one thing that I will always cherish when it comes to my friendship with him. And it's being able to know and understand that I can always call him at any given point. I know that I will always have somebody to lend me an ear or even a shoulder, and vice versa. People like that don't come around too often. And I'm one of those people that I pride myself in keeping great friendships around me. And that is one friendship that will just always be there.
For me, Durell's legacy in ballroom is just all about creativity. He's taking the creativity that ballroom embodies and has taken that to mainstream. With his work, with his photography, with his makeup. That's probably why we've been so close for so many years, because he's really taught me how to take inspiration and ideas and concepts and really make money from it. Like, I've been around a few ballroom people who are just all about walking and, you know, getting cash prizes and doing things like that. But for Durell, it's really all about the art and all about just bringing concepts to life. And that's really one of the biggest things that I've learned from him. And just making shit happen in the real world.
Durell's legacy to me in ballroom would be his resilience to be able to just get on that stage every time and let the girls have it. No matter if he takes a year off, 2, 3, 6 months, 10 years, anytime Durell comes on that stage, you understand why he is destined to ballroom, why he is destined to greatness. Yeah. So his legacy is going to forever be a blueprint for a lot of the people that are up and comers, whether they realize it or not. It's one of those things where it's like, that walk is undeniable. That walk is unmatched. Yeah.
My legacy with ballroom is one of perseverance, it's one of resilience, it's one of creativity, it's one of triumph, because my life is on my sleeves, and there's just certain things that you cannot hide about who you are and your challenges and your journeys, your scars, your traumas. And with this being kind of a fantasy world, you know, you can't really rely on your issues to be healed in ballroom. The root of what ballroom is in its origins was to create a safe space for people to let out their real life pain. So how do I come to a place that has caused me pain and still want to participate? Well, I I have to be complete with me. I have to be complete with who I am as a man and who I am in the world before I can go and play dress up, before I can go and become this alter ego. So I think my legacy is definitely one of resilience and perseverance, because despite anything that I've been through, any house, any disagreement with a house parent, a judge that couldn't take me, someone who, walks my category, who cannot take me, I persevere. I persevere because come hell or high water, no matter what the circumstance is, I owe it to myself to be Durell. I owe it to myself to be Durell. And that's my journey. With or without you, I will always be me.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please, I'm tryna get paid. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow.